What do you do when there's a value that you have that you feel like you fall short on? So, and I'll use family as an example. I feel like that's a place where I don't usually fall short on, but I have. And what if family is a value for me, but then I fall short? And how do I justify that being a value? Like, what is the self talk that you go through in those situations?
Yeah. Well, it starts with awareness, right? We talked in that abundantly in the last podcast on being proactive. So it starts with your own awareness. Let's just use the example you're using with family. And let's say maybe you're not living up to your own expectation, right? The question that I always ask my clients after I ask them the hard question, or I'm getting them to reflect on something, the follow-up question I always ask is, and is that okay? And if it's not okay, that's the example that you're using, right? Is maybe you're looking at your family situation and you say, hey, I don't think this is living up to my value. So you start with awareness and you realize there is that gap that we just talked about. Now, I'm not a big fan of like beating yourself up about things. I oftentimes use the analogy of how big is the windshield on a car versus how small is the rear view mirror, right? There's a reason that you have a rear view mirror, because you do want to see what just happened in the past, like what's coming up behind you, or again, that's why the mirror is there, so you can look into the past. But that's a good analogy on how much time you should spend looking in the past, because the rear view mirror is only about 5% as big as the entire windshield, right? So that means you should spend 95% of your time looking out the windshield or looking into the future. Now, the best future that you can be in is the now, right?
Mhm.
So, how far do the headlights shine on a car in the middle of the night, right? They don't shine all the way to your destination. They only shine out a couple of 100 feet and then a couple of hundred more feet. So, what I would tell somebody is, if you're not living up to your virtue of family, what are you doing right now? What are you doing today? You could change your today. You could change your tomorrow. You could change your this week. You could change your month. But it's all going to start with now. So if you want something different, that's my number one principle. That's my number one operational distinctive out of 10. It says, if you want something different, do something different, or be something different. And make no mistake, different is code for better. If you
Yeah.
want something better, be something better, do something better, be a better parent today, be a better brother, be a better family member, pick up the phone and call your mama. Like whatever the gap is between what you're doing and where you're at is your opportunity. And if you start today, right? Let's just throw all kinds of analogies in here. When's the best time to plant a tree? 20
Mhm.
years ago, right? 40 years ago. When's the next best time? Today, right? Plant a tree today, because you'll look back in a week and it'll be growing. You look back in a year and it'll be a foot taller. You look back in 10 years and it's taken over your whole backyard.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that advice. It's like, okay, realize first of all, be aware, is this what you want? And once you recognize it's not what you want, then it's not about waiting until next week, or it's not about lamenting the consequences down the line. It's about taking action now and living up to those values now. What's the step you can make now that gets you closer to that value that you want to be upholding? I love that. Yeah, I think that's great advice. I'll tell you, for me, I've been working late a lot lately, and that's one of those things that I pride myself in being somebody who likes to spend time in the evenings with my kids and my family and eat dinner. I eat dinner at my house every night, but when I find myself working all the way up until dinner and then having dinner and then kind of like going back to work, that's when I feel like I'm not living up to my own values. And that's perfect advice. It's kind of like, stop beating yourself up, stop worrying about what it's gonna. Because sometimes I start thinking, oh no, I'm not spending enough time. Now my kids are gonna be like drug dealers, or I don't know, whatever thoughts are going in my head, right? Like you kind of blow it up. And what you're saying is the most important future is that you're in right now, and a couple of feet in front of you. Worry about that. I don't think
Yep.
there's anything else any other better way to end this episode. I think, I wanted to talk about goal setting, but to be honest, I think goal setting is its own episode. We can talk about goal setting in general. I think having, like you said, clear, defined goals that are actionable, that are measurable, that you can look back on and see your progress, because more than likely, some people are really strict about making sure they hit their goal all the time. I'm a progress over perfection type of person. And I feel like we sometimes ignore the progress we make. But when we track those goals, that's a great way to making yourself aware of the progress you're making. So I'll let you kind of add anything you have on goals, but I think this is a perfect way to end the episode.
No, I totally agree with you. And we can segue in. I mean, let's go ahead and segue to what's up next is put first things first, right?
Yes.
So it'll give us another chance to talk about goals in that fashion anyway. So I think this is a wonderful wrap up of beginning with this end in mind.
Yeah, phenomenal. It's, your perspective has been really helpful, and kind of using this as a moment for me to get some coaching, I think is really beneficial for me and hopefully for the audience. Next week, like you said, we're going to talk about that next habit. What was it again? My brain is just, what was the next habit
Put first things first.
Yeah, put first things first. Okay, so we're going to talk about first things first next week. Come back and continue the journey on the 7 habits of highly effective people. See y'all tomorrow or next week.
So yeah.